हरि ओम। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिना नतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम. We are studying the preparatory exercises, spiritual discipline for the inferior or the mand adhikari to prepare the mind for the future flights into the higher realms of the consciousness. The equipment has to be tuned. The plane should be properly serviced. Each and every nook and corner of the plane has to be perfectly ready for the flight that is to be undertaken towards the higher levels of consciousness. Upkeeping, maintenance, keeping the whole instrument in safe and sound condition, making it capable of taking the flight, is yama and niyama. So derelicted, so unattended is our life that we do not even think of yama niyama. In fact, at a thought level, and think about this, at an intellectual level, we find this too binding for us. This too much of ahimsa and satya and aparigraha and brahmacharya. What is there in life then? This thought comes to the mind. Sometimes we feel that it is too theoretical or too difficult to attain. These thoughts come to the mind because we have not seriously pondered on the issue. This habit of doing a superficial approach to the scriptures is a big problem. Every Bhagavad Gita shlok is taken too lightly. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati. Then there is a decay in the religion and then the God is born. Okay. Gurunath Maharaj ki jai. This all happens at a very, very superficial level. What is needed is deep thinking, asking questions to yourself. Adhyatma is the exercise meant for oneself, to be done by oneself, to be implemented or acted upon by oneself. There is no role for the other person. Gurudev and people of his stature are the guiding lights. Gurudev is not going to come to me in my body to force me to speak truth. No. Vasudeva will show me the way. He is not going to walk for me. That's my karma. I have to do that. And to do that, I must first thing is to think deeply. And the deep thinking tells us one thing, that I have been brought into this world by the Lord. When he created the world, he must have thought of something. He must have thought of his own creation, how it should be, how their interaction with each other should be, how the cosmos should be going, what is the future of cosmos, how time, Kala, will be related to the creation. This is all his idea. And when he does everything, it is always perfect because he is Ishvara. Our life is imperfect. That means the very reason I'm imperfect is because I am not in Ishvara's kingdom. I am not in the cosmos as envisaged or created by the Lord, but I am in my own kingdom created by me, and me means my ego. And we know the result of that creation. What is the need of getting up early in the morning and listening to Patanjali Maharaj if I would have behaved as Lord expected me to behave in his world? Since I am behaving in my world, and when I say my world, it is an egocentric world seen from my standpoint, which itself is the basic mistake. Seeing the world from one's standpoint is called avidya. One who is not proficient with proper vision. Ignorant. Ignorant is one who sees the world from his standpoint or her standpoint. When everything is seen from Lord's standpoint, it is called jnana, vidya. So what is yama niyama? Rearranging, shaping ourselves to move from our point of view to God's point of view. Self-centeredness to God-centeredness. And once this is clear, the questions like the question that I mentioned in the beginning will not arise. Let us be very honest. We always ask a question. All right, we are having a series of Patanjali Yoga Sutra sessions, but it is too impracticable. It's so much of ahimsa. Who does? Always be truthful, no sensuous enjoyment. Kare to kya kare? That means you don't want us to leave. Thoda to, a little bit. What is harm in having good food, and what is the harm in watching the serial, and what is we are trying to justify our standpoint. However we may justify, Patanjali Maharaj is not going to listen. He says, no, this is yama and niyama, and this you must do if you want to take this instrument for the further flights. That means we cannot have suitable definition of Patanjali Yoga Sutra adjusting to our life. Patanjali Maharaj is not going to budge. All our statements are good in Vyavahara, has zero value in Adhyatma. What are those statements? Admi hai to thoda to karega na. If he's a man, he's bound to a little bit of mistake happens, what happens. Anybody will feel tempted to. Such a nice delicacy is there in Banaras when you go. How can you say no? And today is Diwali, and so what? He's diabetic. At times, occasionally, he can eat sweets. This is not something acceptable in Patanjali Maharaj's scheme of philosophy. He says, no means no. Then comes the question, why is he so strict? Why can't he give little bit of leeway to me? Let's find out that. The reason why we feel it so is because we do not understand What do you get by following such a scrupulous yama and niyama? What do you get? Because you don't have anything in front of your sight to know that this is what I will get. Too much of money. You have immediately plans in front of you. I will buy a house, I'll buy a car, I'll do this, I'll do that. But if somebody asks you, by becoming non-violent, what do you have in front of you? And suddenly we start looking here and there. What do I have? I don't have anything. Because what you get after following yama niyama is not even comprehended by us. There was a man who was lying in a pond full of mud. So a clean man went and said, Baba, don't be in this mud. Come out, take bath and see how you feel. The man said, what? I'm so happy here. And what do you get by putting that water on your body and cleaning yourself? What is that feeling? I don't know that. But I know how nice it is to remain in this mud. The fact is, our buddhi or the mental faculty has not gone beyond the circumference of our sensuous enjoyment. So what is a super sensuous enjoyment? We are not aware. यारो मेरा मयारे जुनून तो देखो, उस पे मरता हूं जिसको देखा ही नहीं. This is a Sufi statement. Friends, look at my frenzy. I am dying for my fiancé whom I have not seen. What is the meaning? That samadhi sukha, that kaivalya sukha, that brahma sukha, we do not know. We have no faintest idea of what it is. That is why we feel, ye acha hai, mine is not bad. What is bad? Right now I'm staying in a 5-star hotel, so comfortable all around, very nice. There's a beautiful view outside. Oh, what's wrong in it? After some time, it will be followed by sumptuous breakfast. What is wrong in it? It's not that. There is something beyond this. We have no idea. Naturally, we consider that as very superficial. Mind well, we all attend Bhagavad Gita. We have faith, Shraddha hai. We are revered, we revere scriptures. But it doesn't seep in. All the shlokas we do by heart. Gurudev, 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 look at this clip, look at that incident, look at Gurudeva's this, all we see. But there is a distance between us and the sadhana. It's like a procession that is passing in front of you. You are not connected with the procession. So you can't be on the banks forever and yet learn the swimming. You have to take a deep plunge into it. That is why, while studying Patanjali Yoga Sutra also, mere rote. That's why we don't have any plan for us. By October, we will finish Samadhi Pada. No, that's not the aim. Parading the shlokas is not the aim of our study. Our aim is deep thinking, stimulation of thinking, so that I can revisit myself. We need to see ourselves in different light. We have seen ourselves in sensuous light. Now we need to see ourselves in super sensuous light, for which we are studying this. And all this superficiality, ephemerality that you feel with this teaching, you feel this teaching is very high. More high you feel this way, it indicates how low you are. So what is the way out? You have no way out but to think about this and take it as a serious, mind well, serious business in life. And that is why, first thing is yama and niyama. You can't stop thinking about ahimsa by just saying that I'm not killing anything, I'm a vegetarian, I'm not beating anybody, I'm not slapping anybody. Don't do justification, sir. This is your own court. Whom are you trying to justify? And had the ahimsa been so superficial, what is the need of mentioning it in Patanjali and spending so much of time and energy in explaining it? Ahimsa means love and affection to everything created by the Lord in the world, including myself. There are people who even hate themselves. In modern language, it is called depression. I can't do anything. I don't feel like doing anything. I know I'm good for nothing. Self-deprecation, lack of self-esteem is violence, hatred towards yourself. Depression or any mental disease is what? Hatred towards yourself. You can't be. It's an instrument created by Lord. How it can be so defective? It is not. I made it defective. When I was born, there was no blood pressure. I invited it. Lord didn't give me disease. I got the disease to myself. Then I have to put it back into the Lord's world by making the body, the sharira, mana, back into the way the Lord had given it to me. This recorrection, readjustment, this ship shaping back again into the original Lord's ship shape is Yama Niyama, of which we saw all of the yamas except the last one, which was aparigraha. This is a very important yama for us. All of them are important. But in modern days, aparigraha is very important. A normal meaning of the word aparigraha is not to collect the things or not to possess the things. See, collection and possession is a different thing. Let's go a little deep into it. Let us develop a habit of deep thinking. Collection is, I'm born to a Maharaja of Jaipur. I'm born with collections. The palace will come to me. I can't help it. Then what is possession? That which is around me belongs to me is possession. I'm a Grahasthashrami. I am married to my wife and we are doing very well. No problem, sir. It's a part of your collection. You are also a part of that collection. But it's my wife. Nobody is as beautiful. Dare anybody look at her? Possessiveness. Women are possessive about the husbands, which creates so much of an issue. Inspection starts. Where were you? Who was there? Was there any lady around? Why did you come at 11 instead of 10? Fear out of possessiveness. Having things around, are they not needed? Right now, I'm speaking to you because of the technology and I have to have a phone to speak to you. Otherwise, from a distant land of India, I'm communicating with UAE. That means I have the phone with me. It's a possession. I have phone. I need that. I need to collect a phone. There's nothing wrong in it because I'm serving a purpose of communicating Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which is a very high and good spiritual sattvic activity. So there's nothing wrong. After this is done, the phone should be closed and kept away unless the call comes, which I will hear. And if I have to speak, I will call. That's it. So in my collection, I'll be having a phone. There's nothing wrong. What about possession? You know, this is iPhone Pro 12 and I'm waiting for 13 to get released. What happened? Collection got converted into possession. You have a child who is brilliant and stood first in her world. Nothing wrong. Why should you feel bad about it? It's a good thing, right? But no child is as brilliant as my child and मेरे लड़के की बात ही कुछ और है. Sir, collection is going into possession. Aparigraha is, even if it is Shastra Vihita. For example, I have got a salary of $25,000. So I can buy something worth $5,000. And it's my own earned money. So there's nothing against the Shastra. But even though it is a Shastra Vihita, Vishayanam, even though Shastra Vihita, Vishayanam means Upabhogya Vishaya. What are the Upabhogya Vishaya? Everything which is called Dravya in Sanskrit. Dhana is, money is part, Vitta is part of that Dravya. Dravya is anything that can be enjoyed. In Aryan time, cows were the Dhanam. After Kublai Khan came, currency came into the picture. The paper became Dhana. The paper became the possession, that currency note. In olden tribes, women were Dhana. Why? They used to lift the women and take it away. Upabhogya Vastu. That was the approach of the men that time. Anything that has Upabhog value would become a Dravya. Such a Dravya, which is of course Vishay oriented, even if it is Shastra Vihita, it is called Parigraha, and that should not be done. Now comes the question. What is the need and what is the luxury? What is that is can be called as a possession and what is a collective? For example, I have to talk to you and also maybe read. So I need a spectacle. So my specs are my possession. I have specs, yes. But it's my need because I can't see otherwise the letters. I can't read. So I need that. So I need something so that I can see better, which will help me in reading the scriptures. Now, scriptures are required for me to develop Sattva Guna in me because I want to be in spiritual sadhana. So the aim is spiritual sadhana, for which the instrument is deficient, so I need the spectacles. So its possession is perfectly justified. So it becomes a need. Now let's take another example. I intend to watch pornography and I'm not able to see the screen properly, so I need a spectacle. Now what happened? You can't see properly, you need a spectacle. So that is not defining the need. The need is defined by the ultimate intention for which you are possessing. The intention is bad, tamasa provoking. It will deprive of the sattva guna. It will stop and stunt your spiritual progress. Naturally, requirement of the spectacle now is not a need, but a luxury. I can't be going naked in the public. Societal norms, yes, they should be followed because I'm a grahastha. I'm not a sannyasi. If I'm sannyasi, I can go without the clothes also, yes. And India allows it. Amongst all the countries in the world, in India, a person can go naked. All the Jain Digambar sadhus, they go naked. It's acceptable, but he's a sannyasi. I cannot do that. So what is my need now? For the current role of grahastha, I need clothes. Fine. So I need a shirt and a suit, a pant, trouser. All right. To that extent, there's nothing wrong. When the need gets crossed and luxury arena starts, the zone of luxury when it starts, I need a shirt, but it should be Sakur Brothers or Harman and Blanc, or a pen I need, but it should be Montblanc. The need is getting converted into luxury. So the thing is, what is needed for the Varna and Ashrama that you are in? I'm a Kshatriya. I have to spend some money for the sword. Yes, because for the duty you need that. Dharma Rakshana Artha, you will need for the duty consciousness. an instrument. I'm an intellectual. I'm a Brahmin. I'm an intellectual, not by birth. Brahman means the one who is thinking. A pen. Sword is the possession. I'm a Vaishya trader. I will naturally be dealing with money. There will be money all around me. That is required for transaction. I have to buy the goods and then sell the goods. Need. I have to only receive the money but not pay the money. What happened? Need went into luxury. Luxury of possessing wealth. Need and luxury needs to be defined. Food, shelter and clothing. Anna vastra nivara is the need of ours. Perfectly understood. Keep it to that in terms of quantity. Ask a question, what all I have, do I need them to carry on what I am currently carrying? Give you an example. Ask any of your friend, even the close friend, how many types of shirts I have. Just list out. Let me tell you, he cannot tell you how many shirts and what type of shirts you have because people do not notice it. You feel you get noticed. Even if somebody says, even if a lady says that sari is very good, she forgets after some time because it's not hers. In other words, other than what is needed barely for your existence, justifications are not allowed. Many people gave me justification, my colleagues, that drinks you have to have because the corporate world requires it. I stayed in corporate world without even touching the alcohol. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. It was our own perception we carry forward. Mahatma Gandhi felt that I will go on a dhoti to meet the mightiest king of England, queen of England. When he went to visit the George V, he had nothing on his body. People said, oh, you're going to see His Majesty, you should be well dressed and all that. He said, no, I have my needs. I'm okay with my needs. I can't afford luxuries because I identify myself with millions of poor in this world and my countrymen who don't have even clothes. Then comes the question, what is the harm in having it? What is the harm in enjoying if I can afford a Ferrari? There is a reason behind it. It is not that just as a fluke they are trying to deprive us from having too many things around us. The reason for aparigraha is it has 5 defects. And what are the 5 defects? Arjana, Rakshana, Kshaya, Sanga, Himsa, Dosha Darshanat, Asvikaranam. Arjana. Arjana means earning. To earn. अगर आपको चाहिए ही नहीं Ferrari, you will not earn more money. You will not go through the rigmarole of again increasing the business, again increasing this. No, but I want to increase my business because I want to earn money and give it and distribute it to the people. Then make another 100 branches. Why? Intention of earning is not for possession, but for collection to distribute. Swami Vivekananda, when he met Rockefeller, he did not tell Rockefeller that please stop your business. This is not good. You have to read scriptures. No, he said carry on, but donate. You become Amazon owner, Jeff Bezos. Doesn't matter. Oh, I'm Bill Gates. Perfectly fine. What are you doing with your money? If by virtue of the skills endowed to you by the God, that is how you become trader or Vaishya. What is Vaishya? God has given you transactional ability. What is Kshatriya? God has given you fighting ability. What is Brahmana? God has given you philosophical or thinking ability. What is Shudra? You have been given serving ability. And why it is given that way? Because of your predisposition, prarabdha, vasana, karma, etc., etc. You are made like that. Then what is the best thing? If you are a vacuum cleaner, vacuum. If you're a washing machine, do the washing. If you're a Brahmana, think about the scriptures and study them. No, I'm a Brahmana, but I would like to do some business. You will not, you will fail. One, two, you will not do justice to your skill. So exploiting the abilities or capabilities or the skill sets given to us by virtue of our prarabdha is not at all bad. That's why Tukaram Maharaj says, Jodoniya dhana uttama vyavhare. He said, Jodoniya dhana, collect the money by uttama vyavhar. Second part of that shloka is very important. Udasa vichare vetsakari. Udasa means without getting attached to that wealth, distribute or use it. मेरा मुझ में कुछ नहीं जो कुछ है तेरा. That attitude is more important. Moment you have that attitude, then even if you are richest of the rich like Janaka Raja, you have a parigraha with you. Now this solves the question, what can I do? I have a villa, it's my own villa. So is it my parigraha? No. If you have earned villa, why? What is bad in it? But it's not my villa. It got registered in my name. And what is the use of this villa I am doing? Oh, I'm calling all my friends and all night we are partying. What happened? The possession has been misutilized. No, in this villa, what we did is in the ground section, there's a little bigger hall. We conduct satsang there. Utilization of the resource for the godly purpose. I've got too much of money. Give it to the Chinmaya Samstha, Ramakrishna Mission, poor people, somebody who is doing education, somebody is wanting to get married, he has no enough money to marry his daughter. Distribute. And again in distribution, the attitude is first mine and then distribute. Only when it comes up to the neck, then I will give to others. That is not that. I will have minimum of the minimum, but I will give maximum of the maximum. Why so? That is what is required as an attitude of a parigraha. हम है राजी जिसमें तेरी रजा है, इधर भी वावा है उधर भी वावा है. God, you did not give me anything, I'm happy. God, you give me so much, I'm still happy. Because whether you give or not, I am personally not going to use it much other than my needs. I want to sleep. While sleeping, no insect should come and bite me. That's a bare minimum necessity. But I want to sleep on a mattress called Serta, which is almost 15,000 dirhams. And sir, necessity has been complicated into luxury. Once you get addicted to the luxury, the mind gets dependent. Now, this is a business which we need to understand, because on this particular aspect of aparigraha, Vivekananda Maharaj has spoken in Raja Yoga book. Mind well, it is a very funny statement he has made, surprising statement. If you look at the Aparigraha commentary in Raja Yoga of Vivekananda, he has given only 4 lines on entire Yama. Only 4 lines. But on Aparigraha, he has given 1 line. And this line is little surprising to us. He says, mind of the man who receives is acted upon mind of the giver, making receiving mind a slave. Very poignant statement. Very, very thought-provoking statements. Mind of the man who receives is acted upon by the mind of the giver, making the receiving mind a slave. So anything that we possess, to that extent our mind gets affected. So keep it to the bare minimum. So what are the dosha? Arjanam. Earning. First of all, you want to possess means you have to earn it. Earn means Every Ramayana you will have to do. Little more money, little more work, extra work, overtime, saving money, cutting on certain things, then you buy that thing. So first of all, that creates too many activities, karmas, and those karmas in turn give you more problems than actually possessing that good. People do umpteen number of frauds. To do what? To get a best possible bungalow made. So for one possession, he does so many frauds, invites so many dangers of karmashaya, which we have seen earlier. So Arjuna, earning. Now then comes the problem. When you have it, the second dosham comes. Rakshanam. I know of a friend who bought a Ferrari, and that too a custom-made Ferrari. I know him. He's fond of cars. His problem was when he brought it to the office. At the home, he has a very large house and well-protected garage and all that. When he goes out, he's always worried if by mistake somebody makes a scratch on the Ferrari. So every time he would come out, he would look once. He's already instructed the driver, be there. Nobody should touch it. Dhyan rakhna. What is happening? Too much of pressure now to protect Rakshanam. So possession needs to be protected. Third dosham is kshaya. It will decay. It will go out of the fashion. That happens, no? We buy a particular iPhone, another 2 years, the Apple company releases another model. Then the first one is under kshaya. Then we feel, I have, but it's a very old phone, I have to change now. Now I should go for one possession led to propulsion for another possession because this is going to die. And also you feel bad about it. Itna acha penta. I had one very nice thing, Unfortunately, I got misplaced it somewhere. I felt so bad about it. I left it in the aircraft. Why? First, if you did not have that possession, you wouldn't have cried for kshaya. Now, these are the three doshas, Arjana, Rakshana, Kshaya, as far as that object is concerned. Now, look at what happens because of the object. Himsa. What is himsa because of the object? Before anybody gets early in the morning for the queue of release of the new phone, I would be standing at the door. So that no one else goes there before me, or I will talk to somebody in the shop, in the store, which is known to my friend, who is known to my friend, so that other person is not given the phone, but I am given the phone. What happened, sir? You did himsa down the line. You resorted to asatya. You resorted to depriving somebody of his own right. Because pehle mujhe milna chahiye. No one else should have what I have. Then only I can be distinguished amongst the people. Even intangible things. A good speaker. These days in Adhyatma, many people speak on Adhyatma, Bhagavad Gita, and so many discourses are there. If one discourse person listens to another person giving discourse about whom somebody is saying ki so and so Swamiji speaks also very nicely, it comes in my mind that more nice than me. Then I say, yeah, he speaks nicely, but sometimes what happened, sir? I was possessing the fact that I am famous. This is called intangible possession, fame. You know how many people were there for satsang? 100. And they come, because outwardly he may be talking about Bhagavad Gita. Inwardly he's feeling happy that 100 people listen to me. And moment there is person who has 101 followers, then I get jealous. This is what is called himsa from possession. A very common example of himsa I will give. In the home, moment you find your things are not there where it was, meri cheez kisne li? Why thing was misplaced from my place? And I told you not to touch my things. What is this, sir? Not to touch your things? It's mine. Dare anybody touch my things? Himsa. Arjanam, Rakshanam, Kshayam, Sangha is another dosh. Sangha means habituation. And we don't have to go far to see this habituation. Sit at any airport and look at, or any waiting area, and look at them, what they are doing. Everybody's down with those thumbs on the phone. What is happening? Sangha. 20 years back, when mobile phones were not there, people used to talk to each other. That was also a sangha, but now it is replaced by peeping and focusing into the telephone. Habituation of the possessed article, feeling that constantly it should be there for me. Suppose you do not have any inclination to buy cars. Naturally, you have no problem in having and not having Porsche. The reason being, the thought of having that is not my thought at all. It's not in my horizon of thinking. That is why, at a mental level, at a thought processing level, not possessing anything other than needed things. What is the practical implication? Every one of us, let us check in the house how much area is devoted to your possessions. And this question I will not ask to any lady, because wardrobes after wardrobes are full of 100, 200, 300 dresses, whatever it is. But for men also, check. 4 bottles of fragrance, perfumes, millions of cables and plugs and everything, previous 3-4 models of phones, around 20-25 trousers, and we had an audacity of again saying, kapde kharidne hai, I want to buy some clothes, it's been long I haven't bought any clothes. This is parigraha. Believe me, again, at the dosham of self-praise, I am stating this. For a long period of almost 12 to 13 years, I did not buy a cloth. And to my surprise, nobody noted. I wanted some accolades, people saying that, Dr. you did not buy any clothes for 12 years. Nobody said that. And I kept wondering why. Then I realized nobody is interested in my clothes. In fact, nobody knows that I have not bought any new clothes. Nothing stopped my activities. Nobody noted it. That means it was parigraha, not essentiality. That is why, by virtue of prarabdha, if you get possessions around you, remember these possessions have come to you for the utilization of sattva guna. So you need to distribute the resources that has come to you, which you do not need. And need means only need, not luxury. No, I've got another 10 lakh rupees in my hand. Let me invest it in shares. Is there a need? No, but 10 will become 15. And then what happened? Then I will give 7 to the elder one and 7 to the younger one. That is not distribution of the wealth, because by giving, the children are spoiled. Mind of the man who receives is acted upon the mind of the giver. Essential. The child should be given essentials, not luxuries. We spoil them by possessions, and then we say that everything I gave you in your childhood and you're not studying. We had nothing and we studied. That is why the problem of earning, problem of protecting, problem of fear of loss, problem of attachment, and fear of violence. Arjana Rakshana Kshaya Sangha Himsa Dosha Darshanat Parigraha Asvikaranam. This is called aparigraha. Hatred, dishonesty, deception, sensuality, addiction of possession. Look at the one of the richest man of Amazon. What he wants? I want to go in the space. Why, sir? You are the richest man. No, that's okay. But still, I want to go in the space. And then what will happen? Nothing. I'll just go in the space. For what? Is it a need? No, I can afford. You can afford it. Fine. How much did it cost? Say about $400 million. Okay. How many people could have had 2 square meals in $400 million? The money came to you for distribution. You used it for a futile attempt of satiating your own desires. That is why aparigraha is like a line of crackers. If you lighten it at one end, it will keep on blasting the crackers till the end. That is why to nip in the bud, asanga shastrena drudhena chitva. Don't get into it only. Phone, cell phone. Think about it clearly. Yes, I need it. Why? I need it for communication, for conducting satsang. All right. So it should have a camera. It should have this specification. All right. How much does it cost? This much. I'll buy it. No, but you know what? So many pixel photo you can get if you spend another. Sir, from need you are moving towards possession. I need a spectacle. The first Deputy Prime Minister and the Home Minister of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the ardent disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, even when he was Home Minister, had a spectacle, one side of which there was a string attached because he did not replace the stick. The side arm of the spectacle was missing. He did not repair it also. He used to use a thread and use it. Who? Deputy Prime Minister of India. This is called aparigraha. Two pieces of dhoti, one timepiece, one stick in the hand, one spectacle, one pair of chappal. The list is complete of Gandhiji's possessions. In 1941, Gandhiji's passbook was retrieved by somebody, which was closed in 1921. It had 5 rupees and 4 annas, and it was still there. That's it. Gone. Possession gone. So this is called aparigraha. That completes the 5 yamas. Now the most important part. I understood the yamas, the restraint, I understood. But are there any exceptions? The apatkalin paristhiti, apad dharma. Is it allowed? Are there any exceptions? No. A big capital no, according to Patanjali Maharaj. Zati, desha, kala, samayat, avichinnaha, sarvabhauma, mahavrataha. That is the next mantra. What is the meaning? No exception to the rule of yamas, no exception of jati, no exception of desha, no exception of kala, no exception of samaya. Let us see what is that. What is the exception by jati? A fisherman is allowed to kill the fish because that's his business, he has to kill the fish. Because of his jati, he's killing the fish. Otherwise, why would he catch the fish? It is needed. It's his bread and butter. What can he do? This exception is not allowed, sir. Patanjali Maharaj is very clear on that. Your society may be expecting a profession, that particular person to be a fisherman, so that everybody is eating fish. And then what can you do if no, none of these explanations stand. Mind well, this is against what we normally think as a normal thing. It's very difficult to digest also. How can you be so strict? You are so strict because you have two worlds, the world of the Vishayas and the world of a yogi. You can't be in both the worlds. There is nothing like that. I'm partly in water and partly in the mud. You're either in mud or in water. This is all or none law. So no exceptions. It has very serious repercussions on thinking. Tapovan Maharaj wrote some 8 or 10 letters in his life. And in the last letter, he said, enough, I don't want to write more letters. I may get addicted. This is still a connection. Why was he so strict? What was wrong in writing a letter to and all spiritual letters? Why was he against Gurudeva going and doing the Jnana Yajna? Such a magnanimous work. Think about it. One guru says go, another guru says no, please don't go. Don't do this. There was an opposition from Tapovan Maharaj. Why? The reason for that was you cannot have exception in Jnana Prapti or Jnana Yoga. Similarly, you cannot have exception in Yamas. So jati, vocation, in which caste you are born, is not an exception. हम तो क्षत्रिय है, हम शिकार करते हैं, we are hunters, because why? We are from royal family. No, sir. No. Kshatriya is supposed to slay the enemy, not the hunting. No. Shivaji Maharaj, the great avatar of Shiva, wrote letters of instruction to all his subordinate people. In one of the letter he has written to the in charge of a fort, he had written a letter, and that letter is available, in which he has written that tumche chiyani mungi hi rand na hovavi. What it means is, it's a Marathi of those days. What it means is, please ensure that even an ant is not made a widow. Who is talking? The person who slain in war all those who opposed Hindu Dharma. Is speaking about not to kill an ant so that she will become a widow. What it means, irrespective of exception of anything, you have to follow yamas. So no jati as an exception. No desha as an exception. Desha means, when I am at Ayyapam, when I am at Swami's temple, Ayyappa, I don't do this. I don't own it. Those 9 days, you're not supposed to lie. You're not. Exception by desha. When you are in a Haridwar, you're not supposed to eat this, you're not supposed to do that. We follow all restrictions in a particular place because of the auspiciousness of the place. So those kind of exceptions also do not work. You are supposed to do yamas everywhere, not only in certain places. We do that. When we are in satsang or Gurudeva's thinking, etc., we are like a very gentleman, absolute. When you again go and mix with our own friends, and then the glasses come out and the colored water comes in, and then we start, that time Gurudeva is gone. Why? We are following yama in certain desha, not in certain desha. When we go into the temple, and when we go into the pub, No. So this way you cannot have exception for the rules. The rules have to be followed everywhere. So Desha cannot be exception. What about Kala? India is famous for this. Now Shravana has started. Most of the non-vegetarian people now don't eat non-vegetarian during Shravana. Kyun nahi kha rahe? Shravan is there. I don't eat non-vegetarian. And the last day of Shravana and before Shravan begins, there is a long queue at the place who serves that the butcher shop. Why? From tomorrow onwards, I am not going to get any meat to eat. So for 1 month, there is no meat eating. There cannot be such an exception of Kala for Yama. It has to be followed throughout. Then comes Samaya. Now, this is something very difficult to understand. Samaya means you cannot do an exception of certain time. For example, a Kshatriya in the Yuddha is bound to kill. This is also not acceptable to Patanjali Maharaj. We feel how it is possible. Then what will Kshatriya do? Kshatriya is supposed to, in fact, Bhagwan told Arjuna, Tasmat Yuddhasva Bharata. And Patanjali Maharaj says, even in Yuddha, you should not be killing. How do you reconcile these two? What Bhagavan was telling is, right now, Arjuna, you will have to fight because of your Swadharma and Swabhava, which you earned because of Prarabdha. So you have to exhaust the Vasana. You will have to do the fight. Even if you say no, your nature will do that. You will be compelled to do the fight. And anyway, if you are compelled, then why not to do it with happiness rather than grudge and complaining? And the result is also very clear. Jitvava bhokshase mahim hatvava prapsisi swargam. If you die, you will go to Swarga. If you win, you will get a larger kingdom. When Bhagavan is saying this, how can Patanjali Maharaj say that even in Yuddha, Kshatriya should not be killing? How do you reconcile this? The reconciliation is, once you do your virechana of Vasana, once you are done with all this, then you become further, because you don't create new asanas. So you don't become again Arjuna as a warrior. You become Arjuna as a knowledge acquirer. That time, Bhagavan will change his advice. What is the advice that time? Sarva dharman parityajya. Leave even Kshatriya dharma also. But not now. Now you cannot. That means, depending upon the evolutionary status, this advice given by Patanjali Maharaj is for whom? The one who is now shaking up himself for taking the plunge into the higher realms of consciousness. So a yogi is away from everything. Yogi doesn't take any role, any varna, any ashrama. Why? Because he doesn't want to get into any of this violation of yama niyamas. That is why they are sarva bhauma, universally applicable. No exception of jati, desha, kala, samaya. They are universally applicable, so it is called sarva bhauma. And that is why it is called mahavrata. It is not a simple vrata. What we do is called anuvrata. Jain Dharma has a lot of explanations on this anuvrata and mahavrata. Anuvrata means with exception. We do that in our daily life, What we normally discuss, there is a saying in Hindi, Ghoda ghas se dosti karega to khayega kya? Which is a justification that, sometimes the violence happens. What can you do? If the mosquito comes, I'll have to kill it. No, how can I? Otherwise, I'll get malaria. This is anuvrata. A yogi will die, but will not harm. I gave you last time the explanation from Jnaneshwar Maharaj's Jnaneshwari, in which he says a yogi does not even increase his nails, because the nails, while moving in the air, might hurt the akasha. See the level of non-violence that Jnaneshwar Maharaj is talking. And this is to whom it is applicable? to the pure soul who is trying to ascend upwards. All the yamas and niyamas, when we try to think and collaborate with our grahasthashrama life, they get molded, they get adjusted. So it's a impoverished version of yama we do. That is not going to help for the one who wants to take the flight. Suppose you make your aeroplane a little bit okay, you will fly up to maybe 50 meters up in the air. But if you want to take a flight of 35,000 feet up, meters up into the sky, the plane has to be very robust. This exercise of yama niyama at all times, without exception of jati, desha, kala, samaya, in a sarva bhauma, universal application, is called Mahavrata. So yogi has to undertake Mahavrata. So the mantra 31st focuses on applicability of all the yamas for all the times, without exception. Just because Ashwathama was to be killed and this was to be done, so I said Narova Kunjarova is not accepted. Yudhishthira's Ratha came down. Satya Priya Satyavat. Yudhishthira got a blot on his life. And that too, it was not a complete lie. It was half truth, half lie. Even that is not accepted. Why? No exception, not even in Yuddha. Everything is fair in love and war is our saying. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, nothing is fair. You have yama, you have to follow yama, because a blotless, completely blotless person can move upwards. Vivekananda Maharaj has made one statement which should make this very clear. When he was asked about a particular aspect of sadhana, he exclaimed that I cannot be equated with my guru, because in his dreams also he did not have any animosity, hatred, jealousy, violence towards anyone. However, in my speeches, sometimes I have criticized the Christian missionaries in some rough words. So I have created violence. This is admission by none else than Yatiraj Swami Vivekananda. So the gist is, yamas are to be followed to the T in the earnest spirit, without exception of any kind. Then only it becomes Mahavrata. Then only you become fit for meditation. Before that, doing meditation is a joke. Without a chitta shuddhi, attempting meditation is at best a drama. First thing first, it is like a person who is completely drenched in mud is trying to clean a little bit area on the forehead, saying that I'm getting cleaner. You will not. The whole body is full of mud. Purity of mind, chitta shuddhi, is the first step, for which following yamas is a must. That is why it is called Mahavrata. Then what are the niyamas? That will be the subject for the next Tuesday. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om. I'll request the sadhakas to unmute and ask, please.
Hari Om. Rajendran here. In the jati, that is a bit complicated, because what that fisherman will do, will he be able to change his occupation to other, or what does what is
Yes.
he going to do with that?
Mahavrata, if the fisherman is evolved enough, he will abandon his profession, because now he is yogi. The one who is not yogi, one whose intellect is not up to the sattvikta that is required for this thinking, will not change his profession. He will justify the profession. That is why I will give an example, and this will clarify the doubt. Mahatma Gandhi wrote a letter during his formative years in Africa when he was thinking about ahimsa a lot. He was thinking about yama a lot. So he got the same question as you have posed. So he wrote a letter to his guru Rajachandraji, another Jivan Mukta. To him, he wrote a letter saying that, Rajachandraji, I am across a question. If I am walking and a snake comes across me, so what should I do? Should I kill the snake? Otherwise, he will kill me. And I want to do so many good things for my life as well as for everybody. I'm a very good soul. So should I get killed, or should I kill the snake and say that it was my right of protection? How do you define ahimsa in this situation? And the answer given is beautiful. It is available on the net, the whole conversation of question answer of the letters. The answer given was, Mohan, it depends on who is there at that moment in you. If you are a commoner, better you will kill the snake and proceed forward to do the rightful things that you intend to do in your life. But if you are an evolved soul, then you shall leave this bite of a snake and its impact and remaining part of your life all to the God for the yoga kshemam vahamyaham, and you shall continue. Even if the difference is, person in the first stage was a person who was not evolved. In the second stage, he was an evolved soul. That being the reason, either you be a person to whom karma doesn't attach, then you can do anything, because then there is no himsa possible, because himsa happens from ego. Ego is the question of himsa. Because if Arjuna was given this advice, what about Bhagavan Vasudev? Was he not the part of that war? So is he not liable for violence? He is not. Why? He is out of the bounds of karma. The one whose ahankara is completely dissolved, no karma can attach to him. So he is free to do anything that he does, because he is no more existing as he. Those where the egocentric existence and the matter vishers are very pronounced, he has to think and take a choice. Depends on how evolved you are. For example, you are in a very poor family. Do you justify yourself that I could not study because I was in a poor family? Or you say that no, even if you are in a poor family, study hard in the night, work maybe in the day to earn the living, but in the night you study and you appreciate that. Why do you do that, sir? Because you are trying to get over the impediments that came to you because of poverty. Similarly, an impediment has come to you because you were born as a fisherman. You can overcome that provided your thought process is so strong. Are you?
Hari Om. Yeah, that's clear.
Sanjay ji, just building on Mr. Rajendra's viewpoint and your answer to the subsequent. So an element of violence, for example, for me personally and from a personal point of view, is something that evolves. So at some point I was not immune to eating non-veg because I felt, oh, they are raised like that. And at some point I became evolved for that. Then at some point I justified egg not being there, and then I justify saying no, egg is fine because now. And today I might feel that I should not hit an animal on the road. I should not. But I still don't think about covering my mouth while walking like a Jain would do. Or I'm saying I still want to live, but my life would mean I might end up killing more insects while walking, right? So I'm just thinking, it's very difficult to draw a limit. While it's very easy to say that there is no exception, there is an exception, right? It's just where you want to put an exception. So I'm a bit no exception. I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it's not, I'm not able to use it in my daily life, the rule of no exception.
Yes. This is because on one hand, the same Jain philosophy said, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. A life depends on another. The same philosophy to reconcile it. I will tell you the reconciliation. There is something called, which is going to come in the next, after we finish the niyamas, we are going to come to a mantra which talks about Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha Bhavana means you have violence at one end, non-violence at another end, and we are in between. As you rightly said, as we keep on evolving, what is evolving? Your thinking. Every time your thought process becomes pragalbha, expanded, you realize that, well, this also comes under the compass of violence. Let me push myself towards the non-violence end. Again, you realize, no, even this comes, you push yourself. And then in the journey, you wonder, how much do I push myself? Like a Jain Muni who puts a patti. What is he doing with the Mukha patti is, he is thinking that even my opening the mouth, the bacteria or the insect should not come in the mouth and get killed. Now, don't go to that as an act. Look at the spirit. The spirit is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Constantly flaming the bhavana that I should not insult, I should not do jealousy, I should not violate, I should not do violence. Constant remembrance, that Mukapatti becomes a spark for thinking. Otherwise, when you will slip in the thinking is very difficult to say. That is why you do not put a limit as such. Where do you put a limit? By doing this slowly, your sattva guna will develop. In between, a point comes when your ahankar itself is going to go away. When you are not aware that you are a body, where is the question of putting a limit? You understand? See, the thing is, you are not going to go to the purest possible non-violence. You are not even needed to go there. In the process of reaching towards non-violence, your ahankar will become small, and a point will come when you become ahankara laya, ahankara virahita. When you become that, then you become constituent of the cosmos as per the God. So you do not know what you are doing, but what you are doing is the correct thing. That is called dharma. In fact, that is why we call the Nirvikalpa Samadhi as Dharma Megha Samadhi. Means what? Like, take example of Gurudeva. Did he do the violence or not? The question doesn't arise because he was not there. How can you say Gurudeva did it? Gurudeva himself did not exist. For us, we feel he existed. He was beyond existence. He was existence par excellence. How can you say that Gurudeva did this violence? Because everything is Gurudeva. Is of doing. So at that point of time, there is no definition required. How much should I? Because then what happens? The journey suddenly comes to an end. So that's why keep walking. And then don't ask a question, how much should I walk? All of a sudden, the destination comes and the walk is over. That is what Gurudeva also says, that keep doing the sadhana. And who will open the next door? The previous sadhana opens the next door. You said, I felt non-violent, little better. I understood the concept. I gave up non-vegetarian. What happened? The door opened. But then what happened? Then the egg door was there. Then another door opened. The egg also was taken away. Then I thought, no, but what about this Mukhapatti? What is happening? Every time you cross a door, you're thinking of the next thing. You're expanding. This is called expansion of consciousness through the buddhi. This is what sadhana is all about. This is what happens in implementation. This is why you get frustrated in sadhana, because thinker only gets frustrated, not the non-thinker. There are so many who attend the satsangas, they're very happy. They always keep telling, keep smiling, it's all God, it's all Vasudeva. It doesn't happen. In fact, Sukhiya sab samsar hai, खावे और सोवे, दुखिया दास कबीर है, जागे और रोवे. To come, let them come, but that doesn't mean we stop. Keep pushing the boundaries. What is tapasya? Keep pushing the boundaries. We are going to see now Saucha, Santosha, Tapa. What is Tapa? We are going to see. How much? For example, it's too cold. What is the harm in using the sweater? But the sannyasi is not supposed to have a sweater. How do you reconcile? what is right, how much should I be non-violent, how much should I be tapa. All these have a pravas, and in the journey a point comes when suddenly no limits are anymore required, because the person who is undertaking the journey is lost. Your ahankar is over, ego is gone, asmita is no more there. Then what? Rule hi nahi hai. You are trying to repair your house because you are a landlord. You own that house. But tomorrow when you die, are you concerned with who is going to look after the cleaning of the house? Because the landlord is gone. Similarly, when ego is gone, none of the yama niyama will be applicable. Why? He is a jivan mukta. In fact, what he does is yama niyama. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. So that means this Pratipaksha Bhavana means to have, because to completely eradicate the ego, and then that is a difficult process. So is it that Pratipaksha Bhavana means to have a thought while acting, whether it is the am I acting as the ego, or am I acting as the sadhaka, or something like what Gurudev says in the yajna, that these things are in me, I am not in them. So with that type of a thought, or I mean, how is that process which can be as a normal situation, how to attempt doing this?
Yes, you tackle the core, a very, very sensitive core of the discussion. Pratipaksha bhavana. Just now, Himanshu ji said, I thought I'm killing, so I should not kill. So then I said, let me give up non-veg. See, what he was doing was not Pratipaksha bhavana. What he was doing was, I should not kill, has a thought of kill. You have in your mind thought about violence, so you are thinking, I should not do violence. Think little deeply what I'm saying. This is called basically a negative manifestation. It is not a Pratipaksha bhavana is not negative manifestation. I will give you another example. You are playing with a small child and you are happy because he's responding to you. Are you thinking that time that I should not do violence? You are not. Why? The word violence itself is absent. Then what is present? Prema, love is present. So if you do only love, there is no question of violence. This is called Pratipaksha bhavana. If you think about how not to kill, then you are still with the idea of killing. Everybody knows that famous story where that young monk and the old monk, and the young monk ferried the lady on the shoulder across this river. And after the river, the old monk asked this man that, you brought this lady on your shoulder, and please don't get into such kind of trap. The young monk said, Maharaj, you're still thinking about it? When I dropped her there at the bank, I dropped the idea also. So when you say not to do violence, you're already thinking about violence. But when you do Pratipaksha bhavana, the word violence, the thought violence, the very idea of violence is absent. So that is called Pratipaksha bhavana. Keep basking in prema. Automatically violence will be there, will be gone. Non-violence will be automatically be there. Think about Vasudeva. For example, let us think about Gurudeva. Now just think about it. Gurudeva is sitting at one place, and he would now then smile. And then what is happening? We are getting our mind through our vichara into Gurudeva's, how would he be sitting? How would he be talking? Now what has happened? You got completely engrossed into it. If somebody asks, Arey, what about your ahimsa? He said, no, I was thinking about Gurudeva. Pratipaksha bhavana. Aparigraha. How do you do that? You keep doing Dev Puja. When do you do the worshipping of God? Do you remember iPhone Pro 12? No. Why? The thought itself is not present there. That means supplement your thoughts only with those thoughts where none of these yamas need to be followed, because they're automatically absent. Why do you think satsanga, satsanga, satsanga? Because in satsanga, for time being, we shut all the doors of our vasanas, which again prompt us for all these yamas. Why do you transgress the yamas? Because of the possessions, Vishaya, everything. When Vishaya is not there, Krishna Bhagavan, what kind of Vishaya it is? I can't possess it. It is not a telephone. I can't eat it. Krishna Bhagavan hai. So what is it? He's not a Vishaya. Then why do you do it? No, I just feel like good. It feels good. Only feeling good. Yes. But that time the entire world. So either you have world Vishaya or Avishaya Ishvara Chintana. So that is why prema. Everywhere you go, you just think of love. Prema. Gurudev. Show me a person about whom Gurudev said that I don't like this man. I'm not going to teach there. Those are very bad people. These are very good people. No. Come one, come all. Very recently, somebody put some posting in our Friday Satsang group that, one Australian monk or some gentleman went there, and suddenly, because of Indira Gandhi's assassination, the camp was cancelled and he went to meet Gurudev was sitting alone in a joyous mood. What is the joyous mood? The camp got cancelled. There is nobody. There is no lecture to be delivered. I am happy. Oh, suddenly 10,000 came, 2 lakh people came and Gurudev is speaking. I'm happy. I spoke in United Nations. I'm happy. And in my own place in Kerala, early in the morning at 3:30, one of the anecdote I saw, he was walking alone towards the mandir for darshanam, early in the morning at 3:30 with his long stick in his hand. Every situation there is prema. Not dependent upon who is listening, how many are there, what is happening, what prasad, what situation. The world has no place whatsoever. Why? The mind is filled with love, affection. कोई निंदो कोई वंदो चलूंगी चाल अनूठी राणा जी मारे बदनामी लागे मीठी. Mirabai says, I'm so happy with the insults that are being hurled at me. That is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. We are going to see that in little more detail also. Krishnananda Maharaj has given beautiful commentary on this, which we are going to include when we discuss. Hari Om.
Sorry, Sanjay ji, but again, why we are saying this as a negative connotation, that is Pratipaksha, opposition?
Pratipaksha, because diametrically opposite is Pratipaksha. One Paksha is violence. What is the opposite of violence? Prema. Opposite of violence is not non-violence. Opposite of violence is not non-violence. Ahimsa is an act. But what comes because of that is the prema. So prema is the prati, antonym of himsa. I have got lots of love in my heart about this child. Means what? There is no way himsa will happen to this child from me. So these are the antonyms. Absence of a thing does not mean presence of a positive thing. This is exactly like that Shunyavada of Buddhism. Everything is ephemeral, so Shunya is the only truth. The Vedanta doesn't say that. They say no, everything is ephemeral, all right. But there is no Shunya, there is something positive there. Something which is positive but not this worldly is Brahman. So that is why negative or absence of himsa. What is asatya? We say ahimsa, satya, and asatya. Asatya means what? What is the pratipaksha of asatya? Not to speak asatya is an act. Satya is ever present. Asatya is mrushavad, is opposite. So absence of an opposite is not what we are trying to. For example, I will not attack anybody. I will not think ill about anybody. Next 10 minutes, at least in my mind, I'm not going to think ill about anybody. What is happening? You're constantly thinking about non-violence and you're acting on it. Now, take it other way around. These 10 minutes, I'm going to love everyone. Everybody is mine. I'm going to. What is happening now? Now you're not thinking of violence. You're thinking of love, which in turn is acting against, uprooting the other side. The one which quells for some time is not pratipaksha. One which uproots is Pratipaksha. That is how Prema is Pratipaksha of non-violence, of violence. Hari Om.
Hari Om ji, this really helped in the explanation. Very similar doubts. Just one thing you had said of there are 5 defects, right? So Arjana, Rakshanam, Shaya, Sangha, and the last was Pat Parigraha.
Sangha and Himsa.
Last one was Hinsa.
Jana, Rakshana, Kshaya, Sangha, and Himsa. These
And
are 5 turning of having possessing anything.
Okay. So just a similar question. You've explained it. I don't know why I'm asking this, even though I've understood it intellectually. I'm saying that the truths, right, of the world, any spiritual truth should be universally applicable. You've explained to us all the paths finally reach the same level. So therefore, the instruction in, Patanjali Yoga Sutra being really so strict in terms where he doesn't acknowledge any Dharma Shastra, he does not, in the sense that this path is the way it is. There is no, whereas a lot of the other scriptures are, include and take into account your varna, your dharma, your location, your age, your position, your varna, all those. So why is there this, apparent disconnect? Is it that at different levels, different things appeal to different, and to help people in the sadhana, this is the way to go? Is it something like that? Or is there some other thing that we're missing?
Yes, this is because the scriptures have a responsibility towards the entire mankind. And the mankind is in different stages of evolution of consciousness. Now, you cannot be giving the same guidance for everyone. There is nothing like one pill and one potion for all the patients. It depends upon where you are a primary. Different syllabus will prepare you. Now, if you're on graduation, at that point of time, if you say that you must know how to read and write, you will say, sir, that is already done. So it is the gradation of evolution of consciousness, how the rules apply. However, irrespective of any scripture that you take under consideration, its applicability is infallible. Now, in some scripture, you must have jati and varna. Chaturvarnam maya shrishtam. All right, agreed. We have to do as per varna. When you are in varna, what about sannyasi? He's ati varna ashrami. Ati means one who has crossed the varna, in the sense gone beyond the varna. For him, there is no rule whatsoever. So that is why if you are already a postgraduate, a PhD, now what about your education? He has no education. He has done. Why? He's a PhD. Similarly, depending upon where you are in terms of evolution of consciousness, the rules are same. The depth and the width varies with the evolution of consciousness. So a boy is there who has, they're very poor, they're from a hutment area, slum area. What is the immediate advice here you will give? Will you tell him that he please go and study atomic science? No, you will say, beta, go to the school. That's first thing first. So naturally, your advice is not wrong. You cannot be blamed that, oh, you should have told him about Harvard. No, he's not prepared to even, he doesn't know what Harvard is. So right now his advice is, please go to the nearest possible municipal school. Now there is somebody already who is into a good school and brilliant student. You tell him that, please don't stop education. Please go for further education to Harvard. Why the advice differed? Depending upon the preparedness of the individual. Similarly, when scriptures advise, they advise to a group and a section of humanity. So that is why, that is the reason why Bhagavad Gita is so popular. Bhagavad Gita is the only scriptures, in fact, even Vedas for that matter, if A novice reads it, he has what he needs, advice. A medium guy reads it, he has his advice. And Jivan Mukta reads this, he says there is nothing like Bhagavad Gita, as Vivekananda says. So for the one who has reached the pinnacle, he also gets what he wants from that scripture. A novice also gets. To make such a scripture is only Lord can make it. That's why it is a divine scripture. So you may find, if you compare apple to apple, that apple was given to a youngster. This apple is given to an advanced sadhak. Mind well, we have come from Samadhi Pada into Sadhana Pada. And this is called as inferior sadhaka. By the way, Yama and Niyam is for inferior sadhaka. What does that mean? That means the journey is definitely tedious and long. Now the question is, we don't want to listen to this because it is too strict. We feel this is abominable. This is something too strict. The fact is, to that level only everybody is brought. To that level, everybody is brought. So every realized person has all these qualities. What do you think all those Daivasura Guna Sampatti Vibhag Yoga? What is Daivi Guna? Have you seen those gunas? There are so many. You feel, how can one person have so many gunas? But that's a stage to be achieved, depending upon where you are. So that is why you're right. Evolution of consciousness, proportionate to that, scriptures keep giving the advice. What about Puranas? All the Janta in India, they will listen to the Puranas. Why? They like stories. But if Gurudeva, when he went to Tapon Maharaj, why didn't he teach him Puranas? Already done, sir. Already done. A postgraduate student has come. Now he's going to write the thesis and get PhD and get it over. He's not going to go back into the first standard. That is the reason the differences are there. Hari Om.